Welcome to The Biker and the Witch. I'm Dr. Sunshine, the biker psychologist.
And I am Foxglove the Witch.
We are in our living room. We have our glasses of wine. We have our pups. You can see Aleister Crowley behind us a little bit. There's his butt. We have our fireplace going. We have a little altar and some skulls. And we are going to do a weekly reading.
Yeah. So it's been a while. We took a little break. I posted it
Big break.
on social media that we were going to have to take a break for a while due to both of us having like medical procedures done through through December. So I had two surgeries in December, and he had a shoulder replacement at towards right before Christmas.
Yeah, you
So
can go on Instagram or TikTok and see X-rays of my artificial shoulder, my
yeah,
bionic shoulder.
yeah, bionic shoulder. Yeah. So we also took our trip to Costa Rica at the beginning of
It was
December,
amazing.
and we had every intentions of posting videos and doing stuff from there. Um, we just had so much stuff going on at the retreat, and then the times that we did get, we kind of just wanted to do stuff together. And you had a ton of papers to grade.
A lot of work to do.
Yeah, so the whole time we were there, you really only got one day off. Um, but also, December wasn't such a great month for me. I kind of fell off where I was doing a lot of work and making progress towards communicating better and not being defensive and not jumping at every little thing he says. And
Well, I mean, the big picture is that when Foxglove and I first got together a few years ago, we talked about the relationship we wanted. And we agreed that we wanted to live in a way that was really committed to continuous growth and discipline um, over the course of our lives. It doesn't have to be super, super rigid, but we wanted to commit to being able to have hard conversations with each other and being
mm,
vulnerable and open and honest with each other. We wanted to commit to taking care of our physical and mental and emotional health so that we could be vibrant into our 80s and 90s. We talked about wanting to be consistent fitness wise, nutrition wise,
mm,
just things of that sort,
yeah,
right?
yes. And I agreed to all that in the beginning because I honestly, I mean, it's still what I want, but I thought I was that person already. Like I already had a really good, you know, foothold going in that direction. It turns out that I did not. And I really suck at all that stuff. So
And she had me fooled because
I
when
thought I
we
had myself
first
fooled.
when we first got together, I went into my therapist and was like, I need to figure out how to not bring any of my bullshit into this relationship, right? Like I need to catch up to her basically. I need to learn to be authentic and be real and do all these
Mm.
things. And
And I honestly thought that that was that person. And I always said, like in my previous, my previous marriage, that I was great at communication. Like I had all this stuff down pat. I just didn't have a willing partner.
mhm.
And it turns out that that's not the case at all. I'm really not good at this. And I'm really good at bullshitting myself and people around me. And
Mhm.
he's the first person that's ever called me on my bullshit. And then all these crazy defense mechanisms kicked in. And some of them were like just the most ridiculous, childish things. Um, yeah, so we had a flare up of that in December where I'd been doing really, really good. And for whatever reason in December, it's like all that went out the window.
Right.
So there was,
However, oh, go ahead.
I don't know, I'm just saying that there was a lot going on between you and
Right.
I.
Well, I would say if anything positive came out of that, it was a lot of arguing and a lot of, um, you know, I don't know, it gets to a weird place where like, I don't care how good you are at it. I care that you're working at it,
Right.
right? And we argue when it's like you're not working at it, but
Mm,
I'm not allowed to say it. Like you get angry
right.
at me if I say
Because
that,
you're
right?
supposed to believe that I'm working at
Yes, right. So, but if anything positive came out of it, I've been, as a psychologist, I can recognize signs, and I've been telling Foxglove from day one that she had tendencies, behaviors, reactions to things that just seemed like trauma. You know, they seem like trauma reactions, like fight or flight kind of. And typically she'd say she didn't really have any trauma in her history, which is great, right? Like that's what I want for her. But we kind of argued to the point, like got so kind of into the nitty gritty that it did come up that you have some childhood trauma
Mm-hmm.
and a high ACEs score.
Mm-hmm.
For people who don't know, ACEs is adverse childhood experiences. You can look that up. It's on the CDC website. Um, and that those things could be contributing to some of your tendencies or maybe all
Right.
of your tendencies. And so,
Right. And also something that happened that has, not that I know of, not that I'm aware of, has ever happened to me before, but it was this spell of disassociation.
mhm,
Like I totally checked out.
yeah,
And I was trying to explain to him like how I felt. Like it was just the weirdest feeling of being in the world, but I'm not in the world. And I was really like floaty feeling and just very disconnected to reality
right,
around me. And then he was like, sounds like disassociation. I'm like, what's
right,
that? So, and it's
right.
something that commonly, well, not commonly, it is something that happens.
It's a trauma symptom.
Right.
Yeah.
Not
And
everybody does it, but
right.
yeah.
And while Foxglove says that like it's the first time it happened, I actually think it happens to her somewhat frequently, but it's the first time it happened like this.
I, yeah.
Because we have a history of having debates or arguments or conversations where she will say things that are kind of outrageous.
Hmm.
And then when we go back to talk about them a day, a two, a week, a month later, she has no memory of having said anything like that.
Right,
Like
right.
it's just
And
gone. And that is very often a form of dissociation,
yeah,
right? Like you kind
that's
of,
the
yeah,
disassociation
you like check
amnesia.
out and say whatever because your brain's not running the show. And then later when your brain checks back in, it has no idea what you said in its absence, you know?
Yeah. So I would never remember this stuff and it would never even sounded like me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't do
Makes it really easy to work stuff out, as you
that. But
can imagine.
he thought, like some of the theories you came up with in the past, is that I just didn't care enough to pay attention or that I was listening to respond and not listening to hear.
Yeah, I
And
think that's still a possibility, right? Like, but I think you might be doing that because your fight or flight reflex is Ella. You perceive a threat even
mm,
though there isn't one, and so you're defending yourself. So I think it's still like your thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex is checked out because you're in fight or flight mode. And so instead of being able to hear what I'm saying and roll it around a little bit, and if you disagree, say, well, no, I disagree, but here's why. And if you agree, say, yeah, that's a good point.
mm,
Instead of that, your brain is just looking for entrances to jump in and disagree with what I'm saying.
mm,
And so I still think that that's like a thing. I just think
yeah.
it's happening like it's a part of the dissociation.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The parts definitely that I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like I know that that's like a specific type
Yeah.
because I think I've read about like 5 different types of
Yes.
disassociation.
Several types.
So yeah, that's the
Yeah.
amnesia. I can't remember what the one was where I experienced that weird feeling. That was the first time
Yeah, it's just like
that type.
it's a somatic dissociation,
Yeah,
body
and it
dissociation. Yeah.
lasted a couple of days.
Yeah.
And it was even like I mean distance from my children, distance from him, and I tried to tell him like I just feel very distant from you, and it kind of really kicked in like I got to figure out what all this is. So that's looked up. Well, he knew somebody to recommend trauma therapist. So we started seeing a trauma therapist. We started reading books and on mindset and mindfulness. And I mean, I have a stack of books. I probably ordered 10 off of Amazon since then. So I'm reading a lot of stuff off the internet,
Podcasts,
podcasts, yeah,
back to the gym
audiobooks,
today,
yeah,
sauna,
mm,
just self care,
yeah,
right? It's like, yeah,
yeah. Just really trying to get back into the stuff because it wasn't that long ago that I was doing all that stuff and felt great.
Right. And
you
things
know.
between us were going great.
Right, cold plunges in the sauna and the gym, and
Yeah.
I was deadlifting, and it was good.
Yep.
And but I have a tendency to self sabotage.
Yes.
Like I've always said like, I just fall off the wagon fast. But I think it's more than just losing interest in something or something. I think it is.
Yeah. Honestly, if you were trying something, like if there's something I like doing, like cold plunging,
Hmm.
and you tried it and lost interest,
Right.
I don't think I would care. Like you don't have to have interest in everything, but these are all things that while you were doing them,
Mm,
you were legitimately like enjoying and
I
telling
was.
me how much you enjoyed it,
I
right?
was.
And you were
Yeah.
benefiting, and yeah.
Hmm.
So, all right, let's get into a reading.
All right. So with all that, thought a good question today would be to turn the spotlight on me, since we have focused on you in the
A couple
past,
of
and
times,
some,
yeah.
yeah, that what, ask the cards, the universe, what can I do to stop self-sabotaging my progress while I'm working on the trauma?
Right. That's probably going to be a longer process, right?
Right.
So if you can continue to take care of yourself while you're doing it,
Right.
that would be ideal.
Yeah. And I think it'll definitely help with the trauma. I mean, going through the therapy and
Yeah.
all of that stuff working
Yeah, it's
together.
like
Then,
coping mechanisms, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah,
obviously if we are vibing better, that's a better support for you. And
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
because stuff is no fun here. Not just the arguing and stuff like that. Like it's just a really sad,
Yeah.
sad environment. So, because neither of us want to be doing that.
Yep.
All right, let's. All right, hands are so dry.
So the question is, how can you
Mm-hmm.
keep disciplined about doing these things while you're
Yeah.
working? Okay.
Yep. While I'm working on it.
8.
Ah,
Weeping wound.
weeping wound.
33. Okay.
You are not. You are not your wounds. Wow.
Off to a strong start.
I know, right?
All right.
Got punched right from this
Oh,
side.
wait. Healing happens as our wounds receive sufficient attention, treatment, and expression. Wounds stop bleeding once the pain has been known and realized and
Mm,
released. Sorry, and released. This needs to occur on an emotional, psychological, physical, and spiritual level. Until then, no scar tissue can begin to form, leaving our wounds exposed to infection. The maiden remains a prisoner in her pain. Her wounds bleed over her potential, voice, perception, and present. She has shown up to support you through a time of safely addressing whatever wounds still bleed over your life. Perhaps you find yourself in a toxic relationship, being mistreated or taken advantage of by your family, friends, or those in your workplace.
mm,
Alternatively, it could be that you experience ongoing money issues, challenges with addiction, or never feeling sufficiently acknowledged, heard, or regarded.
mm,
Give yourself permission to prioritize tending to whatever outstanding core wounds and false beliefs you have with love and light. Shower your wounded maiden self with compassion. Listen to her without judgment. Validate the tears and cries. Feel with her. Access your inherent nurturing and protective mother, guardian, and crone capacity to do this. Assure your wounded maiden self that she is no longer alone with her pain. And from a support network with a loved one, a safe friend, a healing professional, or a mental health expert, or perhaps all four, allow them to bear witness to your story. Often, expressing the depths of our pain to another frees us to experience life beyond the hurt and horror. To have another bear witness to the injured parts of ourselves has the power to release us from the unbearable pain and heal.
mm.
Once enough scar tissue is formed, wounds can stop opening up in the present to hurt us all over again. Having drawn this card may also signify a time of being called upon to support someone by bearing witness to their core wounds. The Maiden's message: you are so much more than your wounds. It is never too late to grow beyond them. It is always possible to access the rest of your life without them bleeding over it. We all must feel, express, and release our way through the pain. There are no shortcuts, but once it is thoroughly done, it is done. It's hard to work over an intense period. It's hard to work over an intense period. It is hard work over an intense period that takes you as long as it takes. Once complete, the insights, peace, light, love, and liberation of being on the other side of your wounds will transform you in unimaginable ways. Your once greatest hurt has the potential to become your greatest power if, and only if, you show up for whatever it takes to complete the process.
Wow. So, in aspects to the question, like how, like to me, this is telling me like what I need to do, like, but not so much as the
Well,
how to stick with it.
I think
But
it's already on that track though,
right.
because your tendency
Mm-hmm.
when you're falling off, when you're defensive and guarded, your tendency is like, wounds? What wounds?
Right.
I'm good. Like
No,
I
I
am,
did.
right?
I denied them. I mean,
Yes,
look how many years I've denied them. I mean,
right,
I'm be
right,
49 soon, and I'm
right. But that becomes your reason why you don't have to go to the gym, don't have to read, don't have to listen to podcasts, don't have to meditate. I don't have to
right.
do any of that because I am good. And what
Mm-hmm.
this is saying is, right,
You have to
is
be aware of it and
and
be
own it,
conscious.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the card on the bottom, radical self-acceptance. So my eyes are not going to cooperate to read that.
You are perceived the way you perceive yourself.
Mm. So with radical self-acceptance, just off the top of my head, it makes me think of loving yourself, like
Oh,
self-love. And I've always told you, well, I have in the past couple of days, that this tendency to self-sabotage could be this whole like this lack of self-love that I have, this low self-esteem I have, poor self-confidence that, you know,
well,
I don't
yeah,
deserve all that stuff, and, and,
right.
and somehow I cut it up and mess it up.
And I look at it. So there's that card is the Guardian. So the Guardian's message, instead of reading the whole thing, says you accept, judge, and connect with others to the extent that you accept, regard, and connect with yourself.
Mm.
And we have talked about in many of our disagreements how one of the reasons you get defensive is like you don't want me to see you a certain way. You don't want me to see you as
Mm.
lazy, or you don't want me to see you as you know not into intellectual things. You don't want me to see you,
Right.
and that's not at all the way I see you, right?
Yeah.
That's the way you see you.
Right. And I'm honestly like, when you get in that rut that you feel that way about yourself, you're convinced like this is what everybody else sees too.
Right,
Like who you really are or how you feel about yourself is how the world sees you
right,
too. And you need to do
right,
everything you can to hide.
right.
Don't
But
let them see that
right,
because they're not gonna.
and I can tell you in every single conversation how incredible you are, how powerful you are, how
You
amazing you
do?
are, and that you're just not. You're just choosing not to be that person, right? Like you're not
Right.
fighting
And you
to be
always,
that
yeah,
person,
we always talk about like, why not? Why? And I'm like, I don't know.
right?
You
But
know, I don't
then
know what the block
right,
is.
but then you feel like you have to get defensive so I don't see you that way when I'm
Right.
explaining to you how I see you, right? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. It is bizarre to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But not that it's not still, it feels a little bit better to me.
Are you using two sets of oracle cards?
No, this is tarot cards.
Okay. It
What
says
I'm,
oracle on the bottom.
yeah,
Oh,
those,
that's sorry. You're using these.
yeah, I'm
Gotcha.
using, yeah,
My bad.
yeah. I can't remember what I was saying
Sorry. My bad.
now. All right. Let's see what else this card say. First card out, Nine of Wands. Justice. Seven of Wands. Wheel of Fortune. The Sun.
Three major arcanas.
Yeah. And the Sun is the happiest card in the deck. There's some readers that will say that the Sun card trumps everything. Like, if up to the point in the reading before you get the Sun card is pretty much, not too great, the Sun card will trump all that. Like, yes, but this is the result. So,
Okay.
yeah. Bottom of the deck is the Six of Swords. Okay. So, Nine of Wands, some people call it the wounded warrior. So it's like that warrior who has just been beat up in the battle and he just refuses to fall. He refuses to yield. He is wounded, scraped up, exhausted, but he is not going to give up his post and he is not going to stop protecting, you know. So and also the wounded warrior goes right with the weeping wound,
Yeah.
like, so to me it's this whole like, keep going, don't give up, like, stand your ground, like, no matter how hard the fight gets, no matter how exhausted you get, like, just remind yourself that you really need to stand your ground and keep going, because this is going to get you where you need to be, and also I'll look at it as her protecting these wands behind her too. And I look at it as like, continue going, because this work is going to heal you and help protect all these other aspects of your life.
Okay.
So then we got the Justice card. The Justice is all about getting what you deserve. It's also, like, balance, like cause and effect. So I'm going with the whole stand your ground, don't give up, no matter how battered and beat you feel. Keep going, because it's going to lead to this justice, this life that you deserve, something you have earned because you have really worked hard. It's like working your butt off and then getting that great. It's not like some people will work their butt off and they don't get jack. Like, that doesn't feel like justice, that you did so much work and but this is like, stick with it. The hard work is going to pay off. You're going to win. Seven of Swords. Seven of Swords is about protecting yourself. Like, you've made this progress through the swords. Like, the Six of Swords is this whole, like, you're moving on to better ground. You're leaving these choppy emotional waters behind and you're moving towards this more settled water, calmer thoughts, calmer mind, so you're making good progress. The Seven of Wands is all about, now you need to protect it.
So this is the Seven of Wands.
Yeah. And she also looks like a complete and total warrior, and she is like fighting tooth and nail. Like, you're not going to come in here and take what I've just worked really hard to move on to. So, stand strong, have the willpower to keep going. You can do this no matter how exhausted you are. It's going to lead to what you deserve. Just keep protecting the progress that you've made. The world is all about situations changing. All through life is a constant ebb and flow. Sometimes we're up here and sometimes we're down here, but you ride the wave through life. So it's saying that, like, with the Justice card and everything like that, like, change is coming. Like, these amazing things that you're working towards, like, things are coming. And to me it looks like she's conjuring up over her head. Like, it's almost like all of this is up here, as above so below. Like, keep doing this stuff, stay focused on it, you know, accept what you've been through, you know, talk about it and share it and do the work. Just constantly stay focused on it and remind yourself that when you feel those weak moments that you feel falling off and that you're pushing, like, I guess, backsliding, to really dig your heels in and protect what you've done.
Mm.
That all of this is changing. Like, that might be a moment that we're on the downslope, but that upslope's coming. Just fight through it. Don't completely give up. And this is going to lead to happiness, celebration, success. Like, wow, I did it. I fought through this hard point and I know I can do it now. Like, I just have to remind myself each time and be very mindful. Pretty much is what you've told me a lot of times. So, yeah, that's what I get from it. And then the bottom of the deck is the Six of Swords. So it is this whole, like, you're moving on. You're making progress. You're making progress. Just protect that progress. Know that it's something you deserve. Fight for it. You may be in a low point, but there's a high point coming and you're going to be happy. I
Right.
think most of these are telling you what you need to do, which was bring light to it.
Mm.
Don't try
Yeah.
to hide it.
Yeah. So I end up in the same place with the sun, but I get some different stuff, but I know you, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, right.
So I think that this Nine of Wands, this wounded warrior, is just like the weeping wound. It's reminding you that you are not all good, right? Like,
Mm,
it's saying you are wounded. Like, you're a warrior, you're tough, but
mm,
you're wounded.
yeah.
And you like to play like you're not.
Yeah.
You like to act like you're all good, you're fine. And
Mm,
part of me wonders, like, how much old trauma you legitimately didn't remember, or didn't occur to you that it was traumatic,
mm.
and how much you just wanted to pretend it wasn't traumatic so you wouldn't have to deal with it,
Right. Oh,
right?
I'm
Like,
sure. Oh, I'm sure
right.
it
So
is.
I
There's a
think,
very good balance of
right.
both of those.
So I see this as, like, telling you to, like, remember that you're wounded, and wounded is fine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wounded is fine,
Mm-hmm.
right? The two things that are not fine are dead, but of course, dead, you have nothing you can do about it, or given up,
Right.
right? But this is saying, like, don't play. Like, you're
Mm.
wounded. Same thing as this one,
Right.
as the weeping wound.
Right.
I see the justice as a little different than you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I see the justice card as a warning. And it's like saying, like, you will have justice. You will get what you deserve.
Mm.
Meaning, if you stay disciplined and if you take
Mm.
care of yourself and if you work, you will have all these benefits, and our relationship will be smooth, and things in the house will be great, and you'll feel
Right.
good about yourself. And if you choose not to, if you choose to fall off and you choose to convince yourself that you're good, and you tend to do that after you've made some progress, because you then kind of sit on the well, look at all the progress I've made, as
Yes.
you're backsliding. And if
Right.
you do that, you
Mm.
will also get what you deserve,
Yeah.
which is much more hardship, much more arguments, much more
Yeah.
disconnected from me, from the kids, right? And so I
Right.
think the justice card is saying, like, what you get, because you have a tendency, especially when you're being less disciplined,
Mm.
it's like there's this inverse relationship. Like,
Mm.
the more disciplined you are, the less you like to be a victim. But the less you discipline yourself, and the less you work out, and the less
Mm-hmm.
you
The
read, and
more.
the
Mm-hmm.
more you play the victim role. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's saying, like, if you're going to choose that,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to get what that deserves, right? You're going
Right.
to,
Cause and effect.
right, right.
And then
Whereas,
that
yeah,
the justice that you get is up to you.
right. And so I think this card is saying, like, keep, fighting, like, keep fighting, but you have to. So I think, this card is saying, yeah, like, it would be better if you decide to keep fighting, if you
Mm-hmm.
decide not to become a victim and let things happen, if you keep being proactive. However, the world is saying there will be times when that's easier.
Wheel of
Oh,
Fortune.
sorry, Wheel of Fortune
Mm-hmm.
is saying there will be times when that's easier,
Mm-hmm.
and there will be times when it's not.
Right.
Right? There'll be times when it's super hard.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be times you have more surgery coming up, right?
I
It's gonna
do.
it's gonna get hard.
Yeah.
And what it's saying is like when it gets hard,
Keep fighting.
yeah, like one of the things you and I had argued about was me saying like I understand that after surgery you can't do everything you were doing beforehand. But I think it's a good idea to wake up in the morning and say, well, what can I do?
Right.
Like how can I take care of myself, right?
Yeah.
And you were very opposed to that, right? Like you were very upset with me for saying those things.
Yeah.
And so I think this is saying like like even when things are hard, like when things are easy, when they're good like they are right now,
Mm-hmm.
great, do all that shit,
Right.
right? But when things are hard is when you need to fight.
Fight.
Like that's when you have to,
Yeah.
right? And then I agree that if you do that all, then the sun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you will figure out some of this trauma history and you'll get the treatment
Mm-hmm.
you need and you'll feel better. But you'll have cultivated a great relationship with yourself and a great relationship with
Right.
me and a great relationship with the kids. And you'll
Yeah.
just,
Well, and also it leads to radical self-acceptance. And
right.
self-acceptance is also like feeling worthy and self-love and taking care of
Yeah.
yourself and knowing that you deserve this time to take care of
Yeah.
yourself. And that has always like a really big struggle with me.
Right.
But with the justice card,
Right.
I also message I get that popped into my head is that this is what you deserve. Like you
Right.
deserve to fight for yourself. This
Yeah,
person,
I agree.
your inner
Yeah.
child, and all these
Yeah.
people, versions of you that's
Right.
wounded in there,
Right.
deserves
Right.
this.
And you just said that the self love and seeing yourself that way has always been a big struggle for you.
Yeah.
It's the big struggles that need you to fight, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like it's not a fight to do the things that come naturally.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have a warrior card, right? You wouldn't have a seven of wands warrior come up,
Yeah.
right? If the deck wanted you, if the universe wanted you to just do whatever feels easiest.
Right.
Like fight when it's easy, but give up when it's not. There wouldn't be a warrior card.
Right.
Right? The warrior card is like, hey, like the warrior steps up when everybody else is like, no thanks.
Right. Right. I mean, look, she's going against all these other
Yeah.
ones by
So,
herself. Like she's just
yeah.
jumping in there. Like, so I think our question was answered in the oracle card and broken down
Yeah.
and reiterated in the tarot because this
Right.
said talking about like it takes all these different aspects of yourself, like taking care of yourself physically and mentally and spiritually and everything. Like that's the way to not fall off.
Right.
You know, and to remember these key things
Yeah.
to keep you going.
Yeah.
You know. So
I think you should take a picture with your phone so
You
we
think
can,
so?
yeah, because if I know you at all, my love,
Mm.
we'll have to remind you that
Oh,
this was your reading.
true.
So,
You are right.
so for a few minutes, when we're done with this recording, I might actually have you send me the picture so that you don't delete it.
I know. Keep me in check. All right. Is there any of these cards you want to?
I think it's clear as day.
You think it's clear as day?
I
All right.
do.
Let's do a final message from Oracle deck. This is the Enchanted Map Oracle deck. That's it.
There you go.
And a jump. Compass. And listening is on the bottom.
So let's see what Compass has to say. Number 50.
Which reduces to 5, and 5 is all about change.
Okay. As long as you orient your compass to true north, the direction of your higher power, you will never be lost.
Mm.
You're entering uncharted territories right now and can expect wonderful new experiences. To stay on the highest path of your destiny, you'll need to keep your compass pointed to true north. Only spirit or a higher power can serve this function. Money, property, prestige, romance, and other material achievements, which tends to be your go-to,
Yeah.
can't help you find your true path. They are simply things you may experience along the journey. Know that spirit is working in your life, so even if you feel lost temporarily, it will be easy to find your way. Have faith and trust for your compass with spirit as true north will ensure that you'll never be lost, even on a starless night when all seems dark.
Wow. So the compass makes me think of the Wheel of Fortune, like the ebb and flow. There's ups and there's downs, and you just
Well,
need to stay on your path even during the down times. And to me, you talk about like working with higher powers.
yeah,
Like that's what it feels like. I told you it looked like she was conjuring something or like
yeah,
as above, so
right.
below. So,
But so for me, and I'm a little bit more tough love than you are with
oh yeah.
things, but to me, you asked, like, how do I stay disciplined and do this self care kind of stuff while pursuing the trauma treatment, which will probably take a while, right? I
Uh-huh.
think when the trauma treatment's done, you'll find it all a lot easier to do.
Right.
But right now, how do I stay on the path? And basically, what I got out of this response, what I heard out of this response is you just do.
Mm.
You just stay on the path. You are not fine, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
okay. It's okay to not be fine. Most people are not, but you do have these wounds. And then the rest of it is just the consequences. If you fall off the path, you're going to have the consequences of that. If
Mm-hmm.
you stay on the path, you're going to have the consequences of that. And if you use your spirit and your inner light, I when we argue, I say to you very frequently that, like, when we're having healthy conversations,
Mm-hmm.
it's because you're telling me about you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're being real and honest and vulnerable and showing me who you are. When
Right.
we're arguing,
Mm-hmm.
the common denominator is almost always that you're trying to make sure I don't see you in a certain way.
Right.
But it's not showing me you, it's just trying to manage how I see you.
Right.
And that is not true north.
No, it's not.
Right. In the military, you do this land navigation stuff with compasses, and you have to be very precise because if you're off a fraction of a degree, like just a tiny, tiny little bit, over the space of miles,
Mm-hmm.
it sends you so far off track. And
Right.
so there's a real desire sometimes, like if you're plotting a course that goes in one direction and then turns another direction and then turns another direction, and then the mission comes and you have your compass and you're following it, there's a real strong desire a lot of times for people to try to, like, cut the corner and just like
Mm-hmm.
shortcut it and just, but you can't do it because you end up deviating from your compass,
Right.
and then your estimation of where things ought to be by the time you
Right.
get there
You
is
end up
totally
lost.
fucked. Yeah.
Yeah. You absolutely end up being lost. Oh, yeah. It never really ceases to amaze me how the cards come out. You know, like that. So crazy.
Mm,
Yeah. All right.
alrighty.
Big
Well,
deal.
I'm really hoping
Mhm.
that this is the time that you decide to just do this shit differently.
Yeah. This one feels a lot different.
I hope so.
There's a lot more stuff that I'm seeing and really seeing it for what it is and not trying to disguise it or hide it. And
Hmm.
I've talked to you and told you a lot of things,
Yeah.
more details about stuff that I do
Yep.
remember that
Yep.
I promised myself I would never tell anybody.
Yeah.
So,
And I love that. I love that you confide in me, and I love that we share that kind of closeness. I'm also aware that, like, the draw, the pull to just
mm,
convince yourself you're fine and not have to do the ugly work is really strong,
yeah,
because I feel that pull for myself too, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
so I'm really hoping, and I want it to go different. I want us to create the life we said we wanted when we got together.
Me too.
So until next time, I'm Dr. Sunshine, the biker psychologist.
And I
So
am Foxglove the Witch. Sorry.